You know that feeling, right? Stress. That knot in your stomach, the tension in your shoulders. We all feel it. But what if I told you that feeling is just the tip of the iceberg? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden costs of stress. We'll see how it's not just in your head, it's actually literally rewiring your brain and changing how you see the entire world.
So let's get right to it. What is stress really doing up there? Because, it's so much more than just a feeling of being overwhelmed. We are talking about a powerful chemical cocktail, a physical rewiring of your most important circuits, and, believe it or not, a huge shift in how you connect with other people. The answers are pretty surprising, and honestly, they're way more important than you might think.
All right, first things first, we need to be clear about something. Not all stress is your enemy, but there is a line, there's a tipping point where that everyday pressure turns into something a whole lot more dangerous. It's the difference between a temporary reaction and a constant, grinding state of being.
And that something is called chronic stress. The best way to think about it is like this. Your body's stress response is basically a fire alarm, super useful when there's an actual fire, right? But with chronic stress, that alarm is just blaring 24/7, even when there's no danger at all. That system, which was first studied by a researcher named Hans Selye, gets stuck in the on position. And that is where the real damage starts.
Okay, so how does this alarm system even work? To really get why it's so bad when it breaks, we first have to appreciate just how brilliant it is when it works right. This isn't some new feature. This is an ancient survival mechanism, hardwired deep, deep into our DNA.
I'm sure you've heard of it, the fight or flight response. It's our body's emergency mode, an automatic, incredibly powerful reaction built for one thing and one thing only, keeping you alive. The funny thing is, in our modern world, your brain can't always tell the difference between, say, a saber-toothed tiger and a really scary email from your boss. The reaction is the same.
So here's how it all goes down, and we're talking a matter of seconds. First, your amygdala. That's the brain's little threat detector. It sounds the alarm. Boom. Next, your adrenal glands start pumping out hormones like epinephrine. You know it as adrenaline and cortisol. And then your whole body just kicks into high gear. Your heart starts pounding, blood pressure shoots up, sugar floods your system. It's a massive burst of energy to either fight the danger or run like heck.
Now this is the absolute crucial distinction you need to get. That whole process we just described, that's acute stress. It's short, it's useful, it's actually protective. It's designed to save you and then get you back to normal. The real villain in our story is chronic stress. That's when the threat feels like it's never ending and that alarm just refuses to shut off. That's when you get a total system overload. So what's the price of that overload? What happens when your body's emergency system is always on? Well, things start to break down. And that's not just a metaphor. There's a very real biological cost. Scientists have a name for this: elastic load. You can think of it as the cumulative wear and tear, the hidden cost of being on high alert all the time. It is the bill that eventually comes due for running your system in overdrive for weeks or months or even years. And that bill, it gets paid by both your brain and your body. Let's start with your brain. Chronic stress can actually stop new brain cells from growing in your hippocampus, which is a huge deal for learning and memory. This is exactly why, when you're super stressed, you might struggle to remember things or find it impossible to concentrate. You know that feeling of being confused or just totally unable to make a simple decision? Yeah, that's this. And the damage doesn't stop there. Not by a long shot. All that extra cortisol just hammers your immune system, making you get sick more often. It keeps your blood pressure dangerously high. It can mess with your digestion, drain your energy, and it is a major trigger for serious conditions like depression and anxiety. You might find yourself wanting to hide from the world or snapping at the people you love. That's the allostatic load taking its toll. Okay, and this is where our story takes a really fascinating turn. The crucial point is, the damage isn't just internal. Recent research is showing us that stress doesn't just hurt you, it fundamentally rewires how you relate to every single person around you. Just let that sink in for a second. We tend to think of stress as our own personal battle, right? Something we fight on the inside. But what if it's also a social problem? A recent study in Frontiers in Psychology looked at this exact thing, and what they uncovered is this incredible empathy paradox. To really get what they found, we have to know that there are two main flavors of empathy. First up, you've got cognitive empathy. This is the thinking part. It's your ability to step into someone else's shoes, to understand their perspective and recognize what they might be feeling. It's about understanding, not necessarily feeling it yourself.
The second type is emotional empathy, and this is the feeling part. This is when you see someone else hurting and you actually feel a response inside you, a wave of compassion, a pang of concern. You're feeling with them.
And this right here is the study's jaw-dropping discovery. When our stress is low, our ability to understand someone, that's cognitive empathy, is what matters most for a good social connection. But when stress is high, something amazing happens. Our ability to simply feel with someone, emotional empathy, suddenly becomes way more important. Why? Well, think about it. When your brain is in survival mode, it doesn't have the luxury for complex perspective taking. It shifts to something more primal, a more basic emotional connection.
This quote from the study just nails it. It's like our social brain has two different gears. In calm times, we connect through understanding. But under pressure, when all our mental energy is focused on just getting through, we fall back on that more fundamental emotional bond. Stress literally changes the rules of empathy.
So where does that leave us? What's the big takeaway here? We've seen that chronic stress isn't just a bad mood. It's a physiological overload that physically damages our brains and our bodies. And now we know it's also a social force, one that's reshaping the very way we feel for one another.
And that brings us to one last, really big question. We live in a world that feels like it's constantly running on chronic stress, a nonstop flood of information, of pressure, of uncertainty. So if all that stress is fundamentally changing our ability to connect, our very capacity for empathy, what is the long-term cost? Not just to us, but to our whole society. It's a question we're thinking about, because the answer might just change how we see the world we're all building together.